So everybody got this? What happens here?
W0 upon P1 goes up.
Thank you. So W0 over P1, N low. So the economy is going, we're going down. Look at this, unemployment has increased. Everybody got this? Then you take it up. N low, lower employment, Y low. So this is the Japan story, this is the Great Depression story. You raise tax rates to do something, so the government here, frantically increases tax rates to do something, to decrease the deficit. But the opposite happens, deficit gets larger. So what's going on here? And please, if you are part of the Biden team, if you have access to Biden, send him this. Please, the man needs help. There's this, yeah, come on. So how does the deficit get bigger? What am I missing here? Yeah, Dan? Yeah.
Lower.
Okay, now you're close. Okay, so let's click on Dan. What did he just say? Revenue. Yeah, click on revenue. Earlier today, I showed you something.
The revenue equals the tax rate
Wow.
times the Y.
That's great. Yes, so what you have here is that tax revenues T is equal to T times Y. Here you are. So here what's happened is the tax rates went up, right? But what's happened to Y?
It went
It's
down
gone
more.
up. What if Y goes down a whole heck of a lot? You get lower tax revenues. And so what you happen, so if Y collapses, the nation, the economy may actually, it will be a perverse effect. And this happens over and over again. And the small engine room policymakers cannot understand this. So the economy may actually incur a larger deficit. Paradoxically. Japan over and over again, that the deficit gets larger. So copy this and we'll talk about this. So policymakers don't understand that you copy this. So policymakers don't understand. They think, okay, we want more tax revenues. We want to decrease the budget deficit. We want more money coming into the government. So let's raise tax rates. They think that Y is like this table. You want more of it, well, just take a larger piece of this table. They don't understand that Y is endogenous. It shrinks. So you're trying to take a larger slice of a smaller pie. The pie shrinks. They don't get that. And so your tax revenues can actually fall. Y is not fixed. Example is New Jersey. A few years ago, New Jersey raised taxes on high-end automobile dealers and boat dealers. So beamers and boats. They raised taxes by 20% because New Jersey wanted more money, tax revenues. So the prices of beamers and boats in New Jersey went high. Taxes went up. So what did people do? If you wanted a beamer, where did you go? New York, went to Pennsylvania, right? Went to Pennsylvania, New York, wherever, Baltimore, Maryland, and so you went out of state. So what happened? the wire fell. And so instead of getting that much money from boats and beamers, they got nothing or less. You know? So what you have here is, you get the opposite effect. Rutgers, right here. We have these programs overseas in Beijing, Shanghai, Singapore. So the central administration wanted more of a tax. They wanted more money from our global programs. And we were barely, it's hyper competitive out there. So we were barely making it. By the way, I've been online since 5 a.m. today with Indonesia and Malaysia. We have students from there joining our Singapore program, so long day here. And so barely making it. So now the old Queens wants more money, from 5% to 25% or whatever taxes. So I said, okay, there is no way we can survive. We have to shut down. So instead of getting that much, they're going to get nothing. We're going to shut down the programs. So I told my dean, I said, I can go over to Old Queens and I can show them. And my dean said, "Oh, please, just sit down. They already don't like us. You know, we don't, just sit down." So finally they got it, that, you know, the program would have to be shut down. So it's not intuitive to everybody.
So how come New Jersey has such high property taxes? Property taxes?
Please forward this to wherever the governor is. New Jersey is losing pharmaceuticals. It's losing high net worth individuals. New York, New Jersey is bleeding high net worth people. They're leaving the state. We are the second worst from the bottom. You know, more and more pharma is being made in eastern Pennsylvania and outside, as you pharma people know.
So what is the trade-off? Like, how low can you go with the interest rates? It's like, in order to gain the advantage, I mean, you keep on reducing interest rates.
Interest rates, well,
Not in, I mean, tax rates, sorry.
you know, it's an optimization problem. But by just blindly raising taxes, you're gonna shut down the economy. Yes, so it's coming in chapter 10 there. Are you, who spoke? Was it you, Dan? Did you go to Chicago for economics? Oh. So, yes, coming in chapter 10. It'll be an emotional thing. I'm going to be saying things like, do not do G, big tax cuts, deregulation. And you know, Trump tried to be a supply sider, but you know, you need a high I bar and C bar too. That's where the problem was. Netanyahu was a supply sider. Okay, so that's something you really need to know. That was just a very important discussion. I feel better now. Okay, supply side model. Chapter 10, let's get into it. Any questions about anything here? Okay. So here we have a bunch of engineers and scientists. Do we have any electrical engineers here in this class? So they use things like signal noise ratios to build this model. So let's here's the roadmap. I'm going to introduce the supply side model. So we'll do the theory first, then we'll power down and do a cycle of one, and then we will end the class with that. And then once we do the theory of next class, we'll do economics, supply side economics. Biden is trying to use part of the supply side model by pushing innovation. So we'll see how that's going to work out. And we'll see what emerging economies are doing. All right, so here we go. Stay with me now. Maximum power again. Expectations augmented. And this chapter 10 discussion is again only found in this book, because what I'm doing here is I've combined 3 or 4 very mathematical papers into a class discussion. So I've synthesized 3 or 4 papers. All of those authors, by the way, got Nobel Prizes. Boom, 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 boom. Joanna Gray, Barrow, Lucas. all these Chicago types, Minnesota type, Minneapolis types. So that's what this is. So this is going to be the engine room for the supply siders. Asymmetric information drives this model. So Dan, do you have a business?
No, I work industrial gas turbines for GE.
Wow. And so where is the manufacturing done? Is it-
For just part of the supply chain, it's in Parsippany and Langdana and Budapest.
So here we are. Asymmetric information drives this model. So stay with me. Producers, demanders of labor, C, changes in both, copy this and I'll talk about this, in both the inflation rate, which is P, and nominal wages, so let's put this, P is the inflation rate, and W is the nominal wage rate. So that's the paycheck. So the producers or demanders of labor see changes in both P and W in the current period. While workers or suppliers of labor only sees in quotes, changes in W in the current period. So let's talk about this. It seems like a fairly innocuous assumption, and this is going to be the DNA of this model. And this is a very powerful model. This is the old European Central Bank. Excuse me, I'm going to change my. This thing deteriorates, doesn't it? So much better. Okay, so it's not completely preposterous, this assumption. So let's start with this one. Workers, that's us. If I were to ask you, how much did your paycheck go up last month? You would know. Oh yeah. I know the feeling. So you would know. Whatever the answer is, you would know for sure. If I were to ask you, how much was the inflation rate in your world last week? Paycheck, how much did it change last week? You know exactly. How much did your inflation rate in your world change last week? Can you go back from? I know eggs, milk, groceries, but that's all I guess. So I know my wage, I know my paycheck. So you know W, but you're not really sure of the inflation in your world. As opposed to your producers, demanders of labor, it's not that they are smarter, it's that they have access to more information. They have access to wholesalers and suppliers and supply chains. So they have access to more information. Keep in mind, this model was built in stagflation. I'm going to talk about stagflation, talk about poor Jimmy Carter. Yom Kippur, all that's coming next class. So the Keynesian model, this is a preview, it blew apart. The Phillips curve, who mentioned the Phillips curve? Solomon, you mentioned the Phillips curve, it was beautiful. So the Phillips curve blew apart by 80, 79, 80, sorry, 73 to 79, it was blowing apart. So Phillips curve was gone, and the Keynesians were in retreat. And these new guys came around in the world of stagflation, which I'll define next time. But stagflation is high inflation and high unemployment. Something that you don't find in a Keynesian world. In the Keynesian world, high P means high Y. Not in a stagflationary world, where it's cost push mostly. High P means low Y. So, this is the backdrop. So in this world, producers, they're not smarter, they have access to more information, and they know better what happened to the inflation rate last week. And of course, they know W because they are paying you the wage. So that's the asymmetry, and that's the DNA. Sounds innocuous, but it's very important. All right, so let's derive the expectations, augmented aggregate supply curve, and this generated 3 or 4 Nobel Prizes, what I'm showing you now, okay? So, by the way, these Nobel Prizes, how do you think they're awarded? Do you know? I thought that the whole planet, so superstars all over the planet would be meeting somewhere to decide the Nobel Prize in economics or history or English, right? That's what I thought. That's what you think too, right?
Yeah.
Guess what? My brother, who was a physician in New Zealand, went to do a sabbatical in this university in Sweden, where the Nobel Prize is based. They have the foundation. Guess what? For economics, just the faculty of economics at Lund University, 16 people, they decide. So my brother said, did you know, bro, that these are the guys here who decide the Nobel Prize? Should I put in a good word for you? I said, wait. First a short answer, yes. Since you are there, I just kind of pop over and go, by the way, But I said, no. He said, yeah. 16 people. I thought all over the world, all the big universities, no. They, in this one school, 16 people. That's why you have some of these controversial Nobel Prizes. It's not the whole planet. That is why Langdana has not won. That's what happened. But it's true. University of Lund decides the Nobel Prize. 16 people. Okay, so here we are. Stay with me.
That really every discipline, like even science ones.
Yeah, because Alfred Nobel, he invented dynamite, and that's his royalty money. So he kind of felt bad about blowing things up. No, he did. He was agonized because, World War I,
Yeah.
So he said, I gotta be a good guy now. So he gave all that money for the Nobel Prize. So to this one university. Amazing, isn't it? Okay, 4 diagrams, maximum power. Okay, all right. Here we go. Firewall. Here we go. Labor demand. Labor supply. W0 over P0, and I'm giving you the initial 12 over 2. So the initial real wage is 6, so we are given W0 is 12, P0 is 2, so initial real wage W0 to 6. So that's, what's the units of the real wage? Come on, Dana, help me here. Chris? Bundles, thank you. Real goods, that's the real wage, it's in units of goods. So here is employment N0 when the story begins. N0, production function, Y0, YY reflector, so YY reflector. So in this here, PY space, that's the firewall. In this space here, we will build this really remarkable aggregate supply curve that these Chicago people, Rochester, the freshwater economists, as they're called, built this. So this is, we will derive our aggregate supply curve in here, and that baby is going to be the genesis for the supply side model next class. So here we are, let's start deriving the aggregate supply step by step. So initially, deriving the aggregate supply. And the expectations augmented aggregate supplies. The first step is plot the given point P0, Y0. Stay with me now. Plot the given point P0, Y0 in PY space. Okay, help me here. So when the story begins, prices are P0, which is equal to 2. And output is Y0, please look at me. Please look at me. Y0 reflected down, Y0, it's a YY reflector. Here is point number 1. So we're plotting the given point. P0 anywhere, there's a firewall, so it doesn't have to match with that axis. Step 2, let's now increase price from P0 to P1. Let's see where is the new Y, because we don't know what this aggregate supply looks like. Is it horizontal? Is it positively sloped? Is it up and down? So let's see what happens. So let's increase P0 to P1. What happens to W1? So now we are given, so now W1 is equal to 15 and P1 is equal to 5. So prices and W, so this is given to you. I'm just making this very easy. It's a really mathematical thing, but I just want us to focus on the intuition. So this is the era of stagflation. When all this is happening, when these electrical engineers and physicists and non-economists are building this model, because we will see next class, suddenly the multiplier effect disappeared. They pressed G, they pressed M, nothing happened. Phillips curve blew apart. So, you're given W1 is 15, P1 is 5. What happens now? Where do workers think they are? And where do producers think they are?
Lower.
Come on, Sherman.
Lower.
So, Rahi.
Lower.
So let's start with workers. Workers see what? Look at your assumptions. Workers see, Jessica.
They think their wages went up.
They see their wages going from 12 to 15. Their paycheck went up. This is stagflation. Remember, oil shocks are happening. Inflation, prices of gas have gone up 4 times. So workers think they are here. 15 over 2. They only see the inflation. And here you go labor supply. Workers think they are better off. they only see their paycheck growing from 12 to 15. But where are employers now? What do they see? Pauline, help me here. Sneha, help me here.
They see a change from 6 to 3, so it decreases.
So the workers, so employers see both. Employers see 15 over 5, that's 3. So they see, employers know they are here. So we have the asymmetric information. Workers think they're better off, and now they're supplying more labor supply. Employers know that, hey, we are only paying 3 market baskets. The increased labor demand, so this is number 2, and look at this, employment goes up, N1, 3, and so let's write down, and so due to the asymmetric information, the information asymmetry, employment increases to N1. And what happens to output, folks? Can you see? Jessica?
Goes up.
So thank you. So N1, Y1, Y1. So step 4, and output increases to Y1. So we're almost done, so let's plot it. We get an aggregate supply. So let's plot P1, Y1. What does it look like? So this is 4. Step 5, plot P1, Y1, comparing to P0, Y0, and obtain the expectations, augmented aggregate supply. What does it look like? Nick, help me here. Chris, Paulina, Sarah, Victoria, Gucci. What's that? Yeah, so here is P1. Yeah. Here is Y1. Please look at me. Y1. 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 Here is P1. This is step 5. You join these, and you get the expectations, augmented aggregate supply. It looks like a Keynesian kind of positively sloped line. It's driven by asymmetric information. So they both went up, output went up because of this information asymmetry. It's a positively sloped line. What do you think about this? How long do you think this is going to last? What do you think? Dana, help me here. So workers thought they were better off when they supplied more labor because the salaries went from 12 to 15. But actually they were worse off, right? So because remember, when the salaries went up, they didn't realize that prices went more than doubled. So over time, and I'll do this next class, over time workers will catch on. What will happen here? Come on, Mark. Matthew? Sorry? Exactly. Workers will catch on. They'll go, what happened here? You know, after a few weeks they'll realize, wait a minute, when my paycheck went from 12 to 15, I did no overtime. Or you know what? I went back to work to join my wife in the workforce. I thought 12 to 15, yeah. But it didn't make sense. Wait a minute, prices had gone from 2 to 5, more than double. So I got taken. So over time, this information asymmetry, in the next class I'll show you, information asymmetry disappears and workers will ask for more wages. And yeah.
Does it work the opposite way too? Where if, I guess, prices fall, like is there an asymmetry?
We don't know.
Okay.
This is the beauty of macro.
Okay.
This model was built in the world of stagflation, where inflation was going whoop, 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 and wages were going whoop, 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 not really catching up. But workers were thinking, hey, we're better off. $15 an hour in this case. Then over time, they caught on. And they said, the hell with this. You know, we're worse off. And we will see next class, they will ask for more. They'll ask for 30 to go back to the wage, real wage of 6. Real wage here was 5. Unions, forward-looking unions, using the Fisher effect, will say, hey, excuse me, inflation is 5. We need 30 to get back to the same real wage. Powerful unions like IG Metal in Europe. Unions again here are going to get stronger because inflation is picking up. Who will negotiate? We want 30. Real wage has to be the same. Fisher effect. We're not being overly aggressive.
Is this what we're seeing now? With,
Yes.
Or not now, but for decades where wages aren't keeping pace with inflation?
Next class we will look at John Deere, what John Deere did last few months ago when prices were going up and they moved wages up quite a bit to index them to inflation. When that happened, you will not believe the emails I was getting, because what that would mean if wages and prices are going back to being flexible again, the Keynesian model, what happens to it? Yes. And what happens to Biden's stimulus plan? Out the window. And the poor guy hasn't, bless his heart, he has no idea. I'm lying awake at night, he's out there, you know, same old story. I ate peanut butter sandwiches and I walked 25 miles and my dad walked peanut butter sandwiches. Enough with the peanut butter sandwiches. I'm the guy eating peanut butter sandwiches on the way home tonight. So, there you go. So it's coming next class. Zahi is going to be leaving us. Zahi, safe travels. See you when you come back in the summer, I'll be around.
Yeah.
But you'll be looking at the notes, right?
Yeah, I will. And the video.
And the videos, thank you.
Yeah.
So I don't want to rush this cycle of one. I'll give it to you next time. But thank you for hanging in there and thank you for listening in the halftime. And watch the videos. I'm sending you some amazing stuff tonight or tomorrow. Thank you guys.
Thank you.